Ma'am, this looks like somebody trying to move money out of an account that isn't theirs. You want to tell me why your name isn't on this withdrawal
Because
slip?
I'm not the account holder. I'm the service manager. I filled it out for a client who was standing right over at window 2. It's standard procedure.
I'm still not seeing anything that proves you can authorize this.
My badge is right here, and the client's ID is copied.
At 9:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, that should have been forgettable. A black woman in a tailored navy blazer stood behind a glass desk inside a regional bank branch. Her name was Danielle Carter. She had keys to the vault, access to every account in the building, and final approval over 7-figure transfers. She was the bank manager, but none of that mattered the moment the police officer walked in, because within minutes, Danielle Carter would be accused out loud of financial fraud, inside her own bank, in front of her staff, in front of customers waiting in line. The accusation wouldn't just humiliate her, it would detonate across social media, trigger an internal investigation, and expose a system where authority doesn't always come from facts, but from assumptions. And the fallout? It would cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars. A career would stall, a badge would be reviewed, and a question would hang in the air long after the doors closed. Before we continue, what city are you watching from? If this is your first time listening, support the channel by liking and subscribing. Stories like this need to be heard, and with your help, we can make sure these events don't go unheard. Because this story isn't just about one cop, or one bank, or one accusation. It's about who gets questioned and who gets believed. Danielle Carter didn't stumble into power. She climbed, slowly, relentlessly, over 15 years. She started as a teller, standing for 8-hour shifts, memorizing transaction codes, balancing drawers down to the cent. When others clocked out, she stayed late, studied compliance manuals, asked questions no one else bothered to ask, risk mitigation, anti-money laundering protocols, suspicious activity reports. She learned how fraud actually works, not from TV, but from spreadsheets, patterns, anomalies buried deep inside data. Promotions followed. Customer service lead, assistant manager, branch operations. By her mid-30s, Danielle was overseeing millions in daily transactions. She wore her hair natural. Her voice was calm, her posture confident. She didn't raise her voice to command respect. She didn't need to. The vault keys were issued to her after a federal background check. Her fingerprints were logged, her signature authorized. This branch, just outside the downtown district, was hers. She trained staff, handled audits, de-escalated irate customers when balances didn't match expectations, and yet, on that Tuesday morning, none of that history would matter, because to one man in uniform, she didn't look like the person in charge. The bank sat on a busy corner, glass front, muted gray walls, a queue snaking toward the entrance. Behind the counters, tellers moved with quiet efficiency. The hum of counting machines filled the air. Danielle stood near her desk reviewing a flagged transaction, a wire transfer, high value, perfectly legal, already approved. Then the doors opened. A police officer stepped inside, mid-40s, white, uniform crisp, hand resting near his belt, not aggressively but deliberately. He scanned the room, customers stiffened, staff glanced up. Police don't usually come into banks unless something is wrong. The officer approached the counter and spoke quietly to a teller. Danielle noticed the teller's expression change, brows furrowed, a glance over the officer's shoulder, toward her. Danielle walked over, calm, professional. "Hi, I'm the branch manager. How can I help you?" The officer looked at her, paused, then looked past her toward the teller. "Is she the one handling the transfer?" The phrasing landed wrong. Danielle nodded. "Yes, I approved it. Is there an issue?" The officer didn't answer her question. Instead, he asked another. "Ma'am, can you step away from the counter?" The room went quiet. Customers leaned in. Phones shifted in hands. Something was happening. Danielle complied, because professionalism demanded it, because logic said this was a misunderstanding, because surely this would clear up quickly. She had no idea this was just the beginning. The officer didn't lower his voice. That was the first thing Danielle noticed. He spoke in a tone meant to carry, not just to her, but to the room. "Ma'am, we've received a report of suspicious activity connected to a large transfer from this branch." Danielle blinked once. Suspicious activity reports were internal. reviewed by compliance, escalated through federal channels. Police didn't show up like this, not unannounced, not without subpoenas. She kept her voice even. I'm happy to review any concerns. That transfer was approved under federal guidelines and the officer cut her off. We'll determine that. A customer near the waiting area shifted uncomfortably. Another glanced up from their phone, sensing something unfolding. Danielle felt the heat rise, not fear, but disbelief. Sir, she said carefully, I'm the branch manager. If there's an issue, we can move this to my office. The officer's jaw tightened. Right now, he said, I need to know who authorized that transaction. I did, Danielle repeated. That's my job. The officer's eyes narrowed. He looked her up and down, then came the sentence that would change everything. So you expect me to believe, he said, that you had the authority to move that kind of money? The air went thin. A teller froze mid-keystroke. A pen clattered to the floor. Danielle felt dozens of eyes on her. This wasn't about the transaction anymore. This was about belief. Danielle didn't raise her voice. She didn't snap back. She did what she'd been trained to do, comply logically. Yes, she said, that authority is documented. My credentials are on file with corporate. I can show. Ma'am, the officer interrupted again. Until we verify this, I'm asking you to stop all activity and remain where you are. Remain where you are. As if she were a suspect, as if she hadn't been standing in this building for years. A customer whispered, Is she in trouble? Another pulled out their phone. Danielle felt her stomach drop, not because she'd done anything wrong, but because she knew what this looked like. A black woman, a police officer, a public accusation. She gestured toward her badge clipped to her blazer. My manager ID is right here. The officer didn't look at it. Instead, he turned to the teller. Did you see her authorize this? The teller hesitated. Yes, she's our manager. The officer exhaled sharply. And you didn't think that was unusual? Danielle felt the sting then, not loud, not explosive, sharp, humiliating. Unusual? She asked. For someone like her, the officer replied, not lowering his voice. To be moving that amount of money, that was it. That was the moment the room shifted, because now it was unmistakable. This wasn't procedure. This was assumption wearing a badge. Danielle crossed her arms, not defensively, but to steady herself. Officer, she said, I need you to explain exactly what you're accusing me of. He looked directly at her. Potential financial fraud. The word landed heavy. Fraud. A felony, a career killer. Gasps rippled through the lobby. Danielle felt her face burn, not with guilt, but with anger restrained by professionalism. I am not committing fraud, she said, and you are disrupting my workplace. The officer stepped closer, close enough that she could smell coffee on his breath. Then you won't mind us checking, he said. Us, plural. That's when Danielle noticed the second officer entering the bank, and that's when she realized this wasn't going to be resolved quietly. The second officer took position near the entrance, blocking it. Customers noticed immediately. No one said it out loud, but the message was clear. No one leaves until this is settled. Danielle felt her heartbeat in her ears. Not panic, precision. Years in banking had taught her one thing. Systems don't lie, people do. She turned slightly, angling her body toward the officer's body camera, because she could see it now, the red light blinking, recording. Officer, she said, her voice steady but sharpened by restraint, before this goes any further, I need you to do something simple. He smirked. What's that? Run my employee ID, she said. Not my name, not your assumptions, my ID. She reached into her blazer slowly, deliberately, every movement measured. She removed a laminated badge, gold seal, corporate insignia, her name, her title, branch manager. She placed it on the counter between them. The officer glanced down. For the first time since he walked in, he hesitated. You can also, Danielle continued, call corporate compliance or regional leadership or access the internal authorization system you're already logged into. She leaned in slightly, because if you do, she said quietly, you'll see my clearance level is higher than anyone else in this building. Silence. The kind that presses against your ears. The officer picked up the badge, turned it over, then turned to his partner. "Run it!" The second officer stepped aside, radio crackling. Customers held their breath. Tellers stopped working entirely. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. The radio chirped back. "ID checks out," the voice said. "She's listed as branch manager, full authorization." The words hung in the air. Full authorization. The first officer's face drained, his jaw tightened, not in anger now, but something else, embarrassment. He cleared his throat. "Well," he muttered, "we still need to verify the transaction." Danielle didn't move, didn't smile, didn't gloat. She just said, "It's already verified." That should have been the end, a quiet apology, a quick exit, an uncomfortable lesson, but humiliation has a way of making people double down. The officer didn't apologize. Instead, he turned toward the customers. "Everyone remain calm," he said, louder than necessary. "This is still an active inquiry." That's when a woman near the waiting area spoke up. "We've been recording," she said. She held up her phone. Another customer followed suit, so did a teller, subtly angling a security monitor toward the desk. CCTV, multiple angles, time-stamped, audio. Danielle glanced toward the officer's chest. The body cam light was still blinking, recording everything, every word, every accusation, every pause where belief should have stepped in, but didn't. The officer noticed the phones, noticed the shift, and for the first time since entering the bank, he stepped back. "All right," he said, "let's de-escalate." De-escalate? As if he hadn't been the one escalating. Danielle picked up her badge and clipped it back onto her blazer. She looked him dead in the eye. "You accused me of a felony," she said, "in my workplace. Without evidence?" The officer opened his mouth, closed it. His partner leaned in and whispered something. The first officer nodded stiffly. "We're leaving," he said, "for now." The doors opened, but the damage didn't walk out with them, because by the time they reached their cruiser, the footage was already online. The video hit the internet before noon, first on a local Facebook group, then Instagram, then TikTok, captioned simply, "Cop accuses black bank manager of fraud at her own job." By sunset, it had crossed 1 million views. The footage was damning, not because Danielle raised her voice, not because she resisted, but because she didn't have to. Viewers watched a calm, credentialed professional explain her authority, and watched it be dismissed again and again and again. They watched an officer interrupt her, talk over her, question her right to stand where she stood, and then, the moment the radio confirmed it, the pause, the shift in posture, the realization that the system had made a mistake, but not before humiliating her publicly. By the next morning, the police department released a statement. An interaction occurred that is currently under review. Under review. Corporate leadership at the bank followed hours later. "We are aware of the incident and stand fully behind our employee." Behind, not in front. Danielle was placed on administrative leave. Standard procedure, they said. Her name trended anyway. Journalists dug deeper. They discovered the transfer had been flagged by an external tip, an anonymous call claiming a woman at the branch didn't seem legitimate. Didn't seem, the officer was identified, a veteran. Multiple prior complaints, none sustained. The city announced an internal affairs investigation. Weeks passed, then months. The outcome, the department quietly settled. $475,000 paid to Danielle Carter. No admission of wrongdoing. The officer received additional training. No termination, no demotion, just a memo. Danielle returned to work, but not the same branch. She was transferred. For her comfort, they said. Her career survived. Her peace didn't. This wasn't about one officer. It never is. It was about default suspicion, about how authority is often assumed to look one way, and competence another. Ask yourself, would this have happened if Danielle were white? Would her badge have been questioned? Her authority challenged? Her word dismissed? Why did proof only matter after humiliation? Why was professionalism treated as deception until the system confirmed what she'd said all along? And why, even after being proven right, was the cost still hers to carry? Because in America, credibility is often racialized. and power decides who must prove themselves and who is presumed legitimate. The footage didn't go viral because it was shocking. It went viral because it was familiar, too familiar. Danielle Carter still works in finance, still wears tailored blazers, still carries keys to rooms most people never see, but now, every time a uniform walks into her branch, her shoulders tense because she knows something now. That authority doesn't protect you from suspicion, that excellence doesn't guarantee belief, that sometimes, even when you're in charge, you're still on trial. So the question isn't whether this was a mistake. The question is, how many times has this happened without a camera rolling? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share this story, and if you're watching from a city where you've seen this play out, let people know. Because stories like this don't end when the video stops. They end when the system changes.